Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Real Freedom Podcast, where we talk about building wealth and gaining time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. For so many in the real estate industry, they have excuses of why they can't do things. And so today we're going to talk about how you can be doing lots of other things outside of real estate and still build a successful real estate business. And so our guest today is Jordan Isham. And Jordan is the co-founder of My Tennessee Home Solution. And in addition to that, he was a graduate of West Point, and you still are in the Army, and you're looking at kind of wrapping that up here. And so you've been able to build this business while you've still been in the armed forces, which is amazing. And so in addition to that, you have a real estate investment business. And so we'll talk about that. You've purchased a hotel, which we'll talk about, mindset. So just a lot of great information to be able to share, and how you built all of this while working in the military and building it up. So now when you're ready to be done, you have a nice sustainable business. And so all those are things we're going to talk about today. So welcome. We're so excited to have you on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on, Mike. I'm excited to chat for a while.
Let's just go ahead and get started and just kind of talk a little bit about your background and how you got into the military, how that worked, and then how that funneled into you starting and building your real estate business at the same time.
No, definitely. I think I was always a little strategic in kind of what I was doing in life, even at a younger age, and kind of hustling for opportunities. Whether when I was like 10 years old, I had a lemonade stand, and in the summers was making a few bucks. And then when I was later in the Army and early on, like building and selling kitchen tables with old wood that I could find around or from Lowe's and make it that way. And then I stumbled upon real estate, obviously. But yeah, I originally enlisted when I was 17 because I came from a small farm town in Vermont, and really just needed to find a way to pay for college. So I enlisted actually to help my chances of getting into West Point, because my grades weren't as good as I thought they needed to be. So that kind of helped me a leg up on my application. Didn't get in the first time. I was like, I'm still going to go. Went to University of Hawaii for a year, reapplied, and then got old Bernie Sanders nomination, who was the senator of Vermont at the time and still is, obviously. And so was super pumped to go, because coming from a small town, it was just like West Point was such a community of high performers that just raised my game to a level I thought wasn't even possible. And like, it was just a huge confidence booster to join a group of people who were just like kind of just the best of the best, and to be able to hang with them was like, okay, I can do this. Now the sky's the limit. And I had never had a chance to really challenge myself in a group like that before. So it was really cool. And then, yeah, I branched as an infantry officer, went to Ranger school, platoon leader, did the whole nine in the Army. And now, and at the close of my 5 years since graduating from West Point, 11 years since enlisting when I was 17, and about to transition out of the Army and take this business full time.
What was it? What was kind of the seed that was planted in terms of starting real estate? Why did you decide to get into it, and kind of how did that build?
For me, again, it was always about starting with the end in mind and then backwards planning from there. And I've always had just, I think, big goals or big vision for my life. And especially after West Point, when I was able to, change my mindset and realize that I could construct my life and live life on my terms. It didn't have to be what somebody else wanted or what somebody else thought was the perfect life. And so I kind of erased the drawing board and restarted with where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And with that, it was like, okay, my income from the Army is not enough to get there. And I know I'm stuck here for 5 years. So I can't work another job. You're not allowed to in the Army. You can't have 2 W-2s, and you've made a commitment. You could deploy at any moment. You could go to a training mission at any moment. So it was like stocks, cryptocurrency, or real estate were basically the options. And I, talking to a lot of mentors and reading all the books. I had the classic origin story of like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Think Rich, Grow Rich. I was like, hey, real estate's got to be the way to go here, because you find that gap between the owner's perceived value and your vision for the future value, and you close that gap through buying, renovating, and holding or selling a property. And it's like just super repeatable and scalable. I saw my mentors doing it. I saw that everyone with significant wealth, they all have the common theme of real estate. real estate assets owned in some capacity. And so, yeah, I started the typical kind of like bigger pockets path of like buying a house with a VA loan, house hacking, cash flowing, buying another house, rental property, and then doing a flip, doing a wholesale, and then just scaling from there to where it is now, where we have, a full business, a full team of people, and we were able to turn, 8 properties a month. So yeah, real estate to me was always like the way I could do it while I had a W-2 job, that was basically surefire, and it just completely dependent on my like dedication, effort, and determination.
How did you manage your time then? Because obviously you're working during the day, you've got a lot of stuff on your plate. And I want to get at this because there's a lot of excuses that a lot of people have, right? I've had conversations with people, and these are people in real estate of, I got to find the right lender, I've got to find the right contractors, and I'm sitting on a real estate license looking at properties all day long and I can't get over the hump. And then there's somebody like you where it's like, I have a limited amount of time. I don't know anything about real estate, at least at the beginning. And so walk through your process of how you kind of, from a learning standpoint and then an execution standpoint, how that knowledge base built and grew for you, and how you were able to assemble your team all on off hours, right? It's not your day job. And so you're able to build this. And so kind of walk through that process.
There's like 3 words that I think I try to use to explain, how to do it. It's decide what you want, plan how you're going to do it, and then commit. And so the way to get started, and the way to grow, and the way to make it happen is to decide what you want, commit to it, right, and then plan. So it's just like you were saying, people just you always find an excuse for why you're not perfectly ready, why it's not 100% solution. And the reality is you just got to commit when it's at like a 60% solution instead of 100%, because you're never going to be at 100%. So it all comes down to just taking massive action and learning from experience, and really, again, like finding the models that work, the mentors out there, provide value, learn for free in exchange for working for them, and read the books, and the secrets to be like a millionaire with a six-pack are already out there. They're on the internet, they're in the books, they've happened to a million people. So it's just about following the steps. The biggest thing that usually I think holds people back, and including myself early, is just the mindset piece to take massive action and overcome the fear or the limiting beliefs. And so more so than anything, to grow and learn, for me, it was just about taking action. The first property I bought, significantly invested in, was an Airbnb that my buddy and I split 50-50, and massive loss. We put a lot of work into it, a lot of money, and it didn't go nearly as well as we planned. But the biggest thing that happened is our identity shifted to become from, just a person in the Army to a real estate investor. And when our identity shifted, then we started to attract like-minded people and join the Facebook groups and in the masterminds and read the books. And that just created exponential momentum. So it's really just about, I think, starting somewhere, taking massive action, and learning from it to do a little bit better every time, just 1% better, kind of every day, every week, and then letting the rest take care of itself.
Now, you had mentioned about, you and a buddy started off and went in. So is that money that you had previously saved up from being in the Army, or did you get that as a loan from friends and family, or kind of how? Because I think a lot of people want to know, how do I go from nothing to at least something? And so would love to just kind of hear how that came together, how that 50-50, what type of property was it for you, or what was it about that property that made you go from being on the sidelines to being in action?
Yeah, for me, capital was pretty low. So I brought the work, I brought the hustle, and my buddy brought the money. So that's always a good way to do it, is to learn a process, or at least have the confidence to do it. And then find a buddy who can bring the money. And I mean, I had some capital, but it wasn't enough to do it myself. So that's why I knew I couldn't tackle it alone. Before that, I just bought a house with a VA loan and house hacked it and saved up a little bit from the Army, but really didn't need anything to get started, because again, I had the idea and found the property, and found a partner who would bring the money and let me do the rest. So that was the best way to do it. And that's what I recommend for people who are low on capital. There's always creative ways to find the money. Really, anyone without money can find value in acquisitions and finding a great deal, because the money will find great deals. So if anyone can learn to find incredible deals, the rest will happen.
Yeah. I mean, there's really kind of three key components. It's money, it's time, and it's kind of knowledge and experience.
Right.
And so you don't have to have all three.
Right.
And for most people, it's, I probably don't have the money. So it's, can you do the time, and can you put together the knowledge and experience, or kind of learn as you grow? And that's valuable. And I think a lot of people sit in this spot of like, I don't have money, I can't do real estate. Well, then focus on the time and the knowledge piece. What can you contribute to somebody? Because there's a lot of people out there that, we talk about passive investments. There's a lot of people out there that are busy professionals, or they have money. They don't want to take the time to learn, but at the same time, they want an investment that's going to work for them. And I think that's the value of what you can provide is the hustle. That stuff really matters. So if you want to get to where you want to go, and this kind of comes back to mindset, put in the time, be willing to put in the time, and then utilize somebody else's money to get where you want to go. And then eventually the money will start to follow after that.
Yeah, that's it. I love that. That's a good explanation of it.
So as you started with your first property, so now you have a business where you said, doing 8 deals per month, you've got wholesales and fix and flips. So how did that team start to form along the way?
It was mainly natural growth. And this is something I always recommend to people looking to start businesses, just to not necessarily debt finance, but reinvest your profits into growth. And so for me, it started DIY. Like I was doing the cold calling and marketing and advertising, just guerrilla tactics, because I didn't have a budget to work with. I was just scraping and crawling for a deal. And then, basically me and a buddy found a great deal through like cold calling and door knocking, and we got it under contract and flipped it and had like a 6-figure profit. And so then we reinvested all that money into into a CRM, into an increased marketing budget, so we could create more leads, and then into a mastermind, so we could learn how to convert the leads. And so we reinvested that money into all the things we thought were necessary for us to keep growing and build towards stabilization as a repeatable process. And then from there, we were able to close a couple more flips the next few months. And then now we had more money to reinvest. And now we're able to get the right CRMs we needed and increase our marketing budget, and then hire a sales agent, right? And so it's just this natural growth that we were able to generate from starting DIY, guerrilla tactics, low budget, to then just take anything we can make and reinvest it until we're at a point where it's stabilized and consistently cash flows with the process we have in place.
What's the messaging out there that you're targeting for people? So you said, cold calling people, you said you were door knocking. What were you looking for here? Just looking for distressed sellers, people looking for a cash offer on their home? Kind of what was the, that initial pitch to people?
Yeah. I mean, for us, it's all about, finding motivated sellers who want to sell off market for cash. And there's always a plethora of reasons that someone wants to do so. At first I thought it feels like we're taking advantage of people sometimes when they're selling off market. But now I realize when we go in and tell them like, hey, you can make more if you list this on the market with a realtor. There's just so many people in unique situations that doesn't fit what they want to do. Mm-hmm. Whether it's an inherited property and there's like complications with title, and they don't want people walking through, and they just want to cash out in the next couple of weeks and go separate ways. Or if it's like a pre-foreclosure and they need to close within 2 weeks, which is a lot of the properties we buy actually. And they're behind on bills and the bank's about to possess it. Well, we can get it closed out within 2 weeks and have them on their way. So it's a plethora of reasons, but yeah, through the process, we identify who wants to sell off market. And we only use actually inbound marketing because we're all virtual and have W-2 jobs. We need to be really efficient with our time. Mm-hmm. And so we need really high quality leads. So we don't do any outbound marketing. We don't do any cold calling or cold texting or door knocking now. We do all basically Facebook ads, Google pay-per-click, SEO, TV ads. So all the leads already, like, they come to us to say, hey, I see your service. I want this service. I see your reviews and your brand, and I want to sell to you. And, now what are the next steps? And then we send out acquisitions agents, work the process from there. But that way we only get like 60 leads a month. And from that, 60 to 80, probably 80. And from that, we're able to convert 10 to 20% because they're such high quality leads. And so, the inbound marketing method, while it's expensive, we spend 25,000 a month on marketing. We're able to generate 60 to 80 leads and close 6 to 8 properties a month from that. So it's really efficient, but it's also the system we need being virtual.
So some of these properties you're physically buying yourselves to do the flips. Some of them you're just kind of wholesaling. How are you making that decision? For those folks that are out there that are new to wholesaling or don't necessarily understand what that's like, or people that want to do flips, how are you kind of deciding what's my strategy here? And the answer that I've always used is sometimes the house speaks to you, right? Like depending on what needs to be done, what the price point is, what you can sell it for, the house kind of tells you what maybe the best strategy is, but walk through your decision-making process on what you're going to do with that. When that lead comes in, it's like, hey, this is legit. I think we've got something here. What do we want to do with this property?
No, that's a great question. It's changing too as the market's shifting. So, I mean, it was so easy last year. And I know, this, that like we could wholesale a deal off market and get a 90% offer on its all-in value. It's like, if we were to flip it, we'd only make a few more thousand. Why even go through all that, just to make a few more bucks? And now, right, where the offers are a little more, are a little lower, investors are a little more wary just because interest rates are higher. And they're like, what's the market doing? Whether it's speculative or not from the investor's part, it behooves us to flip it if, the margins or the real value is higher for our profit. So, I mean, the 3 numbers that really matter when evaluating a single family deal is like the purchase price, rehab, and ARV, after repair value. And so obviously ARV and rehab are 2 subjective numbers because like what you do to it depends on what the ARV is. And the ARV is also subjective based on how you evaluate the comps. And so those are the numbers that vary, but generally we try to get a property under contract at somewhere between 60 to 70% of all in to ARV value. So the purchase price plus the rehab needs to be 70% of the ARV, because then we'll be able to find buyers who will buy it as high as 80% of the ARV. That, again, purchase price plus rehab, 80% of that ARV. And then that's how we make our margins as a wholesaler. Whereas, when you look at it through the lens of a flip as well, we can capture 100% of that value by renovating it and flipping it and then selling it. And so it's a matter of really like what the numbers are and how easily we can wholesale it, which is like, very quick and easy, and there's no risk associated, versus flip it. It takes more time. There's more variables. There's more overhead. And then, you usually make more. So for us, we evaluate it based on how many flips we're currently doing, and then like how juicy the margins are. So, I mean, it's really case by case, like you said, and the house does speak to you like, oh, we got to flip this one. This one's a cookie cutter one. We generally try to be pretty like risk adverse because we like to turn and burn properties and keep going. Again, this is for us a cash flowing business more so than it is like a real estate investment business. We focus on real estate investment with like the commercial real estate side, but this is more about continuous cash flow. So if our projections for a given month are lower, we're like, hey, let's wholesale this. We want to keep our margins up for this month, and it just depends on the cash flow of the business, and we try to keep it pretty consistent. But it's nice to always have that opportunity as an exit strategy to do either. I mean, we've done like 4 flips at a time before, just because they all look good and we had the appetite and time that month and the patience to do it, because we'd already had plenty of wholesales come through. So yeah, it's nice to be able to have multiple exit strategies as an option and really just focus on the priority, which is acquiring the properties. Again, if you can do that, the exit strategy, that's all the fun stuff.
Talk me through kind of the end buyer. So if you decide this is a property that we want to wholesale, I think that's a hard thing for people new into wholesaling is like, well, how in the heck am I going to find somebody to buy this, and how I'm going to do it within 2 weeks? If it's a time sensitive thing. So walk through kind of building up that cash buyers list and how that worked to where you feel confident telling a seller, yes, here's the price. I can get this thing closed in under 14 days for you. And then now it's, okay, game on, let's go. Let's get this thing sold.
Yeah. Yeah. We're in the Nashville market. And so there's a lot of real estate investors, which probably helps. But even and we're even mainly in the secondary markets around Nashville, which I think is a great place for anyone to focus, is the secondary markets around any metro. As it grows out, right, you capture that gentrification. But like the easiest way to do it is just join all the local real estate investing Facebook pages and see who's posting, who's posting the wholesale deals, and then who's commenting to say they're an investor. But then also to search tax records, you can see who's buying houses for cash. And really, once you start joining the communities and networking around the area, like going to the local meetups and talking to people, you realize that there's probably, like, in any given secondary or tertiary market, there's probably 20 investors separately that are buying about 90% of the wholesale deals. And so it's really about, we call those like the whales. So it's really about finding like the 20 to 30 whales in the market. And because now we're at the point, it's all relationships. We build relationships, we build trust. We don't put bad deals out there so that we don't ruin our reputation. We want people to like see an email from us or a deal from us and be excited because they know it's gonna mean something. It's gonna be an opportunity, not just try to scrap a few dollars, at the expense of our reputation, because that is really what matters long term. So we're at the point now where we can text, one of those 20 whales in the market and have it assigned, at the price we need. So it's nice. It took 2 years to get to that point, 2 years of networking and adding people from the Facebook pages and emailing people and pushing out good deals and sitting down for coffee and looking at the tax records to see who's buying cash and going to meetups. And, so it takes time and it takes a lot of networking and relationships, but then you're at the point again where you can text a few people and have it closed out within a few hours.
Maybe we can touch on this next a little bit more, kind of talking about the mindset piece, because as an agent, we're kind of wearing my agent hat and working with investors. Like, I'm looking at wholesalers, I'm looking for people out there who have good deals.
Right.
And in a lot of times it's kind of like, you got to try to find the red flag, because with a lot of wholesalers, it feels like they're trying to pull something over on somebody. Yeah. And so going back to beginning with the end in mind, you have to realize that people want to invest with you long term. And if you're just trying to screw people over, then you can't, it's not going to work. And so a lot of times you'll see in these groups, people will post like, hey, property for 200,000 and, repair value is 50,000, ARV is $600,000.
Yeah.
And then you're like, where does that come from? And everybody in the group is like, interested, email me. Yeah. And then you find out like, no, it's either the price doesn't work. The renovations is actually going to be 200,000, not 50,000. And the ARV is not 600,000, it's 400,000. And so obviously those are extreme examples, but that tends to be how it is. And so as a wholesaler, like, yeah, you want to be reputable. You want to put out good information. And so it's not like, hey, I screwed somebody over on this property to get my check, because they're going to come back to you later, possibly as a future buyer. And so I think, kind of like I said, coming back to mindset, that's really important.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's so true. Like it's never good short term to make a few extra dollars at the expense of the reputation long term. And so, and another thing we do on that note specifically is we don't ever put the rehab in our like deals, because that's like the beauty's in the eyes of the beholder. We let that run. And for the ARV, again, subjective number to some extent, we give a pretty wide range just because we don't want to be like held responsible for like letting someone down. We know the purchase price. We know the ARV generally can be in a certain range. The rehab, varies greatly based on what kind of investor you are and how you're going to do it.
So talk about mindset then, where you want to go. And we had a little bit of a conversation offline talking about, building wealth, doing bigger deals and commercial deals. So kind of share what you're looking to do in the future and why you're trying to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And just on that note of mindset, it's just like investing in yourself, like the human capital piece to me is like, I continue to prioritize that, and I'm glad I do. It's just like, it's, I guess it's all about like believing in like what you can do, and not to say that someone's bigger goals are any worse or better than someone's smaller goals, whatever smaller means. It's just kind of what fits for you. What's cool about mindset is you really get to like design your life and live life on your terms. And that's what real estate is for us. It's like creating time and space to have the freedom, right, to live life on our terms. Real estate and wealth is a vehicle to like enjoy your time and have high impact in the world, really. So, and that's kind of what it's all about. And through like individual counseling with a counselor, understand like my childhood relationship with my parents, how that shaped who I am today, and a performance coach to help me like keep me on track and accountable and growing. And then through like journaling and gratitude, it's like all these things to cultivate like where I am, what I'm doing, and why, and where I'm going, right? And to make sure that I'm aligned. Because if you ask most people, hey, what's your purpose in life? They'll be like, whoa, I have no idea. I have no idea. I haven't thought about that. And that's kind of scary, right? It's like, what are you're working so hard every day and you don't even know what you're doing it for. So those kind of things I think are important to prioritize and understand the purpose and the vision and where you're going is been huge. So, I mean, for us, it's about like the sky's the limit. We have a business process that works. It's the good to great. Jim Collins calls it the flywheel. And it's really about like taking our flywheel, and we can now apply this to anything we do. It's about hiring A players and building a great culture, number one, and then generating leads, converting the leads through sales, exiting on the contract or the client, and then celebrating as a team and adjusting and refining to repeat. So you can take that in of itself and apply it anywhere. So we plan to continue to grow our current single family business, to franchise it in other areas of the country, and then to grow in the commercial real estate as well by continuing to acquire more doors, where the single family business is like the cash flow that kind of pays our salaries or pays the bills, and commercial real estate's more of like long-term generational legacy wealth building. That is an awesome nest egg and tax benefits and passive income, that allows us to have more freedom of time as we go through life and do less of the day-to-day stuff. But we can take this business process, this flywheel, and eventually too turn it into private equity, which is something that excites me. Is just being able to like buy smaller businesses and take them to the 10x next level, and then exit via either just hold it and hire out CEO team or sell it. And so it's kind of cool to think about like, hey, just by baby steps, starting with like house hacking and VA loan, turning something into a business and finding a model that works. You can now scale it to an unlimited degree. And now it's just a matter of how hard you want to work in life versus how much you want to kind of hang out and just enjoy it. So now the balance is kind of up in my hands to figure out, and same with our team. And that's a cool spot to be in, is choosing, what you want to do and where you want to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. And share with us just a little bit about the big deal that you guys did, the hotel.
Yeah, well, I remember a mentor telling me, this was in like a mastermind, the best time to, I was like, man, I want to get into commercial real estate. I see everyone's doing it. I see that the bang for buck is so much better. Like, but we don't have like too much money. Like, when would you recommend I'm like ready to do it? And he was like, you were ready yesterday, and the best time to start was yesterday. So you might want to start. And so I remember we just blindly, like, one of my lead measures, which is like basically inputs that we're all assigned lead measures that we're held accountable to every week. And one of mine at that point was submitting LOIs on commercial deals. So, which is a letter of intent, basically an offer. So I was just submitting like 5 offers a day on different properties, and we got one accepted as a backup offer. And then, at the time we were like, had no idea what we were doing. We were just super excited. So I started doing due diligence. I had some underwriting experience from working for a mentor. And so we did the underwriting, applied a business plan, shared it with all these people we knew who knew what they were doing. And they're like, yeah, this is a good deal. Partnered with somebody as a GP who had experience in the syndication space. So we had credibility. And then we're like, all right, we got the deal. Now we got to figure out how we're going to make this happen, which is, again, like the spot we kind of tend to live our lives in, is like commit to it and then figure it out. And so, yeah, I mean, naturally we were able to hustle and grind to raise the money, which was a great experience, even though we had no idea how to do it at first, and tackled the deal. It was a $2.4 million boutique hotel. We're putting about $1 million into it, and hoping to exit at $7 million, which will be 2 to 3 times equity multiple within 4 to 5 years there. So, like, really just trying to build momentum in the commercial real estate space before we move on to the next one, and build confidence in our investors that we can see a deal, apply a business plan, make them money, and keep going. And so that was an awesome experience. It's still ongoing, but we're really, really excited for kind of the credibility and trust it'll create for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, obviously you're going to have hard deals in the future, but the hardest one is kind of the first one here, where it's like you're building all your processes, you're figuring out how it goes. And I think, for us kind of having been through this recently too, it's like you feel dumb doing it, like, because you're like, you're asking questions that you're like, oh my gosh, like I should know the answer, and they probably can smell me as new from a mile away. But at the same time, you now have gone through it. And the reality is you're not new. You know how to do this in a different asset class. You know how to get leads, take care of them, analyze numbers, put processes in place. So it's just an asset class that you haven't done that to. And so you're using all your problem solving skills, all your judgment skills, talking with mentors, asking questions, using the resources available to you to where you can do it. So you're not new. It's just a new class for you, and kind of figuring out how to do that piece. But once you do, now you've got all the systems in place, you've got all the processes, you've got the strategy. And so now you can just go take it and do it for bigger and more deals.
Yeah. And it's fun to operate in that like imposter syndrome zone where you're a little uncomfortable and pushing yourself to a point that you haven't been before. I mean, that's what it's about. And I remember hearing the other day, like, if you're not embarrassed of like what you were doing or where you were a few years ago, then you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough now. And I really think that's cool thing to think about, is like, well, 3 years ago, like, I can't believe I was just doing that. Like, what was I doing? I was wasting time. Right. And so it's cool to think about how far you go in just 2 to 3 years, really anybody, and to take that and keep going.
And yeah, just to kind of recap here, I mean, you built and grew a real estate business that's doing, 8 transactions a month. You've got a team of 8 people, and you helped acquire a $2.4 million hotel that you're going to eventually turn into $7 million. And this isn't even your full-time job right now. And so just imagine what happens now when you're done and you have the ability to put more time into this. And so that's the cool thing that I want people to understand, is you've done all this with what a lot of people would call kind of the remainders of your time, and you've been able to scale this. And so there's really no excuse. If you're out there listening right now, you're on the sideline, you're waiting to take action, or you've taken a little bit of action and you see what you've been able to do. It's like, well, no, it's so worth it. And you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and you have to be comfortable feeling dumb sometimes, not knowing what to do. But that's what's going to get you where you want to go. Yeah,
totally. I love that. And it just always comes back to mindset, because like there's so many people I've talked to where they make all their excuses, right? And I shatter their excuses because I've been there. I've had the same kind of thoughts, and I say, nope, that's invalid. That's invalid. You do this, this, and this, and it's going to happen. And they still won't do it. And it's because there's limiting beliefs. It's deeper than just, the excuse itself. And so if you're not getting down to the core of like why you're not doing it, then you're never going to do it. You always make the excuse. There's always going to be some excuse, right? And so it's where I like that you emphasize mindset, and it's something that's important to me too. Is just you got to overcome that in order to take massive action, and it'll work. It always does.
Yeah. Cool. So Jordan, for people that want to, learn more about you and what you're doing, how can they find out more?
Yeah, I would say just connect with me on LinkedIn. That's usually the best way, or shoot me an email at jordan.isham@outlook.com. So either of those two, great. I love connecting with people in the the real estate space, or entrepreneurs, business owners, or anyone just looking to get after it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. It's such a cool story, and we could chat for hours, but yeah, I appreciate all that you've shared. There's a lot there, and to be able to do it while you're working your W-2 job is just amazing. So best of luck to you in the future, and excited to see where the journey takes you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.